Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Christina and I currently live and work in the Dominican Republic, specifically the city of Santiago de los Caballeros. Last video I talked about 5 things that I love about living here in the Dominican Republic. So it's only fitting that in today's video I talk about 5 things that I do not love so much about living here in the Dominican Republic. This is not to say that I'm bashing anything. Again, these are just my opinions. I could talk about a lot of things that I love about here, and I could talk about a lot of things that I don't love about the US. So it goes both ways. So I don't want to rub anyone's feathers the wrong way. These are just things that I've noticed when I'm home in the US, I don't really miss that much. If I'm looking down a lot, I have my computer here just so I can keep myself kind of on topic. So the first thing that I have down, and again, these are not in any specific order, but the first one that I have down is the driving. So I have been driving here consistently for maybe almost a year now, maybe a little bit under a year. And it is a learning curve, first of all. I have driven in a couple major cities. I have not driven in New York, so I guess I can't compare it to that. But driving here is just a whole different ballgame. Like, if anyone has not been here, it's kind of hard to describe. But for those of you who have come here, I'm sure you understand what I'm referring to. Traffic rules are just incredible. Like, there's rules, but do you follow them? Like, yes and no, and it depends on the time and the place and when. To give a couple of examples, in the US, if you're trying to make like a left turn through another, well, obviously through a lane, but like on a highway, for example, you just wait for a break in the traffic. Here, not even on a highway, just in a busy road. Here you don't, well you could, but what most people do is they just start inching out into the other lane little by little until they're so far out that the oncoming traffic just stops and then they go. And if you're not the first person trying to cross, someone else is already in that process, you like use them as a shield and you just go with them, which I guess makes sense. It's just scary at first. And then another thing is merging. You gotta merge with like this much space. The conchos are a whole nother thing. Conchos do not think that any traffic rules apply to them at all. They're very scary to avoid sometimes. And the moto conchos, or the motos in general, they disregard like everything. They weave in and out of traffic. They'll like cut you off on an intersection. They'll go on red, like all this stuff. So you just have to be like hyper alert, and it's really, really tiring sometimes. And then besides the actual driving, sometimes the roads aren't great, which that is fine, like that happens everywhere. But some things here are really scary. Like there will be potholes that are so deep that if you hit it, your tire will like you'll get stuck. It's not even like you'll just pop. Your tire will like get stuck in it basically, and you'll not be able to move. Or what are they called? Speed bumps will be so tall that you literally have to go sideways to be able to get over them without scraping the bottom of your car. So yeah, there's just a lot of different things here that make it kind of stressful. You have to be very aware. Driving for like more than an hour for me is tiring here. I really like being able to drive. It's nice not having to rely on Uber, but it's definitely not something that I miss when I'm in the US. The next thing I wrote down is catcalling. So number 2 is catcalling. Obviously this happens everywhere on different levels. In major cities in the US, this is a thing, pretty common. It happens where I'm from, but not to this extent. Catcalling here is very different. There's a specific noise that people do to get other people's attention, but also when they're catcalling, I don't even know if I can do it, but it's like a sound, I guess. And it really, honestly, at this point feels like fingers on a chalkboard to me, because guys will do that if they see you walking down the street by yourself, or really in a group of people, they'll do it when you're with people as well. But you honestly, you could think you look like a hot mess and you'll still get catcalled. And I think the difference here versus there, at least where I am from, I do not want to overgeneralize, they're a lot more descriptive with their catcalls. And they're not even always gross things. Sometimes they're nice things. It's just very, usually it's not wanted. or it's a lot of older men, or it's just kind of creepy when you're alone and a female. So yeah, I definitely do not enjoy the catcalling. And again, I know that happens everywhere, so I'm not trying to say that's just a Dominican thing. It's just the specific way it happens versus where I'm from that I do not super miss when I'm not here. The third thing I wrote down are the Ubers. I have so many stories I could talk about with Uber, but the biggest thing is that Ubers here can either accept card or cash, which I think I may have talked about before. So they like cash because then Uber doesn't take out like a percentage, basically. It's like not traceable. So it's better if you have cash. I usually don't have cash, so I put it on my card, and they hate that and they really like to mess with you. So I've had Ubers that will accept my ride and then they'll never move, and like I'll message them and everything and they don't move, and they want you to cancel because then you get charged and they still get a percent. But you don't want to cancel because I'm petty like that, even if it's like $2. Or I've had them come and then they see me and then they drive away. I guess that's not seeing me. They see that it's on a card and then they drive away. So like literally you're like about to get into the Uber and then they cancel. You have them that will just cancel immediately. Yeah, they just like to mess with you. And it's really frustrating sometimes if you're in a rush. You always have to have kind of a buffer. Or for some reason lately when I'm at my gym, I have a horrible time trying to get Ubers lately. People just won't pick it up. Or I've had 2 Ubers come and then say that they picked me up but they didn't, and then they drive away because they want to charge. So then you have to like report them, and yeah, Uber is annoying. It's much better if you have cash, but again, like I don't always have cash here because I'm paid in my bank account from the US. So like, I don't know, it just gets frustrating. So Uber is the third thing that I do not miss when I'm in the US. Which to be fair, I don't use Uber in the US either, so it might be just as annoying, but yes. All right, the fourth thing I wrote down, bluntness. Now this is a personal thing. I'm a sensitive gal. So I'm sure some people, actually I know some people from the US really like the bluntness that's here, and this has 2 sides. I think people in the US can be too sensitive, or like we dance around topics too much, whereas people here can be too direct, in my opinion. An example of this, here I have a lot of friends and I've experienced it where, as well, like personally, if you gain a pound, a ton of people will tell you that you look like you're getting fat. Or if you lose a pound, people will be like, why aren't you eating? Like, it's just very direct, and it's very minute things that they pick up on. For example, every time I come back, one of my friends' grandmas always tells me that I've lost a ton of weight and like asks me if I don't eat while I'm in the US, and I am very, very positive my weight is staying pretty much the exact same. So it's just very like specific things that they pick up on. Or like if you haven't done your hair well that day, they'll be like, what's wrong with you? Like, you look like a mess. Or just stuff like that. I don't know. It's much more straight to the point, which can be good, but I think there's topics that is worth being sensitive about, and people's physical appearance is one of those. So I guess to specify more, it's bluntness about people's physical appearance. And you can see this even in nicknames, which they do not mean anything harmful by it, but they use nicknames for people that in the US we'd consider offensive, which I understand. Given the culture, you just kind of accept it and move on. But we would never, for example, call someone like skinny guy or fat guy, and they'll say like flaquito, gordito, like just stuff like that. So like it's very ingrained in the culture, so that's why it's good to just accept it and move on. But it doesn't mean in certain situations you always have to agree with it. And I think with physical appearance, that's one of the areas that I don't necessarily always appreciate it. And then the fifth thing that I don't really like is planning things. And what I mean by that is island time is a real thing, and I love it to an extent. Everything is much more relaxed, but when you're trying to make plans with people, it's very confusing. Because if I say 8 to have dinner with my friends, I know they're not going to be there at 8. But one of them might be 30 minutes late, one might be an hour late, some of them might be 2 hours late. You genuinely do not know. And so with my friends, what we do now is we'll be like Dominican time or gringo time. And even if it's gringo time, I usually still give myself a 20-minute buffer. But like literally, I have been 2 hours late to a dinner and I was still the first person there, which is fine. I just don't know how to know. I'm like, do you guys all like speak a different language, like with timing? Because if I'm like, okay, 8, I never know when to get there. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if it's 8, it's like 9, but then it does not always mean 9. And for me, I'm not on time in the US. I'm like 10, 15 minutes late all the time. but here that's not even late. Like that's pretty on time, except for certain things. Dominicans are very good at being on time for their flights, which is really funny, which I respect. But yeah, so planning things with the way that they operate with time can be frustrating. I do like that in the US I have a better gauge of when people are gonna show up. So yes, those are my 5 things that I don't super miss when I am at home in the US. Again, just my opinions. I'm not bashing anything at all. These are just things I've noticed I don't miss when I'm home. There's so many things I love about living here, more than just the 5 or the 6 that I put in my previous video. If you have anything that you do not like about being in the Dominican Republic, I would love to hear it in the comments below. I want to thank you for watching. If you haven't, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!